So, you've all seen that video, especially if you're on Explosions Fire, of this pocket Phosgene.
Give it! Pocket
Phosgene.
4
hours later, the worker's condition began to deteriorate rapidly, and despite medical treatment, he died a day after the accident.
And, I think I may have just come up with a way to make it real, which is cursed, but hear me out. Okay, so, we're gonna make ampule. We're going to put a tiny bit of chloroform, enough to be vaporized, and flush it with oxygen, seal it off, and expose it to UV. And that should give us pocket Phosgene. So that's the plan, I guess. We're going to go ahead and turn the scrap glass into an ampule, make some fresh chloroform, dry it thoroughly, and also then purify it because we don't want any impurities to destroy our Phosgene. And we're going to put a few drops in our ampule, which again has to be dry and clean, otherwise the Phosgene will react and we won't get Phosgene. And we're going to flush with pure dry oxygen, expose it to UV, and we'll have pocket Phosgene. So yeah, of course, we're not going to be handling the Phosgene by itself, and I also won't smell it for obvious reasons, and I'm not going to break the ampule just to do that. So, yeah, I guess we're making pocket Phosgene now. So, while I may be infamous on Explosions and Fire for breaking a lot of glassware, I am sure good at glass blowing, so let's go ahead and make an ampule. So, we're just going to heat this up. You can see the yellow flame, so we're getting this up to temperature. I'm going to lower the flame now. We don't need it too hot. And we're going to get it nice and hot there. You can see the glass starts moving on its own. Take tweezers and draw the glass off like that. That'll go set aside for now. We don't need that. And just keep drawing off more and more glass. So we don't get a sharp point because otherwise that's too easy to crack. We want a nice round bottom. And now we want to melt the glass down a bit, so the wall thickness is not too thin. We don't want thin glass. We also don't want too thick glass, otherwise it tends to be stressed when it cools down. I'll call that good. You can see, quite even. Gonna anneal it. Oops. Go ahead and anneal it for like 30 seconds or so in this flame. That's to relieve stresses. It really isn't necessary on something this small, but might as well do it. Doesn't really have a negative impact. You can see we have a nice consistent thickness in the glass, so that's a good sign. And I'll go ahead and let that cool down before I do the other side. We want to draw it out a tiny bit. Okay, so now we're going to do the stem. And this is quite simple. Also, I did just realize I honestly have no idea if the chloroform will ignite or react with the oxygen when it's heated. So that's a little bit of an unknown, but it'll be all done under fume hood, of course. So, I do know that chlorinated solvents can burn, though. Chloroform, I have accidentally put too much ethanol in it. It was flammable. I don't know if pure chloroform is not flammable, but if it's with pure oxygen, there might be a chance of it being flammable. So, yeah, this is really going to be an unknown. So, I'm going to try to melt it here, give it a longer stem, just in case. So, hopefully it won't touch the flame and ignite it. So, let's go ahead and do this. What I've always found so interesting is that glass, frankly, isn't really a good thermal conductor. You're able to heat it up white hot and you're only around an inch of distance between you and your finger. So we're going to go ahead and get this nice and hot. You can see that should be good now. We can draw it out a tiny bit. And There you go, ampule. So I'm gonna let this cool down, of course. Probably gonna let it cool down overnight, actually, because it's a bit late, and I guess we'll continue this tomorrow. Okay, so now it's time for chloroform synthesis, so let's turn on some stirring. Here's some bleach, let's add an acetone, no ice bath, we're just gonna raw dog it. So we're just going to add in a tiny bit of acetone at a time and let it react. Okay, it's been a good, oh, caught it on camera. So it's still slightly yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and add another 1.5 milliliters of acetone. And we'll simply let it react. Yeah, it's getting warm. Good sign. Let's check the color. Okay, I think that's actually good. So I'm going to go ahead and turn stirring down and let it coagulate. I'll also go ahead and stopper this so we don't lose anything by evaporation. And yeah, I guess we now wait. This is quite warm though. You can see the stopper, there's a bit of pressure on it. It'll be fine. I had to distill the chloroform out because it wasn't actually enough to separate from the water properly. But anyways, here's our chloroform, and we're going to dry it with a little calcium chloride. Water will actually react with phosgene, slowly hydrolyzing it. So, of course, we're going to remove our water by using calcium chloride. But it seems pretty dry already, so I let it sit for a few minutes, and now we're going to generate some dry oxygen gas. So, here's this generator, I guess. It's just some potassium permanganate and a little bit of hydrogen peroxide. And also a drying tube. Now we're going to add some chloroform into our ampule here. And we're going to set up a little needle thing to introduce oxygen into the ampule. And we're going to flush it out thoroughly with a lot of oxygen. So I'm simply going to open the tap and let all of the hydrogen peroxide drain in to generate as much oxygen as possible. Now, it didn't dry perfectly because the water actually gets misted into a aerosol, but it should be fine. So now it's time to seal the ampule off, and as you can see, it did not, in fact, ignite like I thought it would, so this is pretty interesting. This could be probably because the chloroform wasn't actually fully evaporated yet, so yeah. So I decided to melt the end over, but you can see melting an end over just like this creates a tiny little nub that's very easily broken. And we don't want that, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the glass out a bit more. And, yeah, it may look like I'm being stupid here, but this is actually the proper way to seal an ampule properly, so, yeah. This is the only way I know of to not get a thin bit of glass at the end, which is very easy to snap accidentally. So, we're going to go ahead and melt this down very thoroughly. Of course, all being conducted under a fume hood on max power, because I don't want phosgene poisoning. I don't want to end up like my family. So, yeah, we're going to be very careful with this. And any phosgene that would form would probably be burned in the fire, so yeah, I'm not too worried. It's just, meh, not really something I want to do. So, leak check after it's cooled down. Don't do this while it's hot. But there's no leaks, so now it's time for the fun part. Bam! Phosgene. No, I'm kidding. I'd have to irradiate it a lot more, but over time this will react all of the oxygen, forming a lot more phosgene. So I put it in this little case here. It looks pretty cool. I stain the wood using a blowtorch, and the ampule is tied in there with a little bit of wire. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this project, I guess. There's nothing really much you could do with this thing. It's more of a display piece, and the phosgene inside of it's non-lethal. The amount really isn't that much. This ampule is only around, like, what, 5 milliliters in volume or something like that, so this is really a harmless amount in there. If it was to break, yeah, it's not pleasant, but it's not much. So anyways, guys, here it is, pocket phosgene. This is so silly. Why did I do this? Look at this thing, it's so cool. It's actual pocket phosgene.
So you can't have a window AC? The hall does not approve of your window AC.
Give it! Pocket.
Phosgene.
Yeah.
4 hours later, the
So, uninvited intruder aside, there it is, pocket phosgene. That skit was so badly executed, but it was totally worth it. Anyways, yeah, that's it for this video. We'll be doing a lot more stupid stuff like this in the future. And, yeah, see ya.